You're in luck because there's another game coming up in 3 hours. We're going to talk about all of this and more with Jerry Reynolds right here on If You Don't Like That.
3, 2, 1, go.
Sacramento miscue. Carter, stolen by Williams. And look at this. Oh, you don't like that. You don't like NBA basketball.
Fox, goodbye. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball. The exclamation point from De'Aaron Fox. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Boy, that's an ESPN highlight right there. Whoa. Carlson comes in. How about this? Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley. That was a major league smush.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley, Jerry Reynolds. You know what? An ugly win is better than an ugly loss, and that's what we saw last night from the Sacramento Kings.
Sure did. I mean, obviously, the first half was about as poorly played as the Kings could play. I thought the effort was pretty good. I mean, when you're missing shots, people tend to think you're not really trying. But, I mean, the game gets harder. And, we talked about it at halftime where the rebounding was bad. Well, partly there wasn't any rebounds to get because they're getting scored on all the time. But that got better. And I thought it's a case where the Kings just to their credit, just kept battling. We talked about again at halftime. They cut into the lead right before the half, had a little bit of momentum, and then they cut into it a little more after the half. And then in the NBA, you got a game. If you're 12-14, that means almost nothing in the NBA. And certainly we've seen the Kings lose those kind of leads. And fortunately, it was the Warriors, and I thought they did a nice gag job down the stretch. Couldn't happen to a more deserving bunch, I think.
You make a very good point about missing shots. Missing shots doesn't mean you're playing poorly, all right? It's part of the game. But, I don't think that you can just erase what you saw last night from Sacramento. The fact is they were not competitive at all in the first half in what to this point was arguably the biggest game of the year. And they really took advantage of some horrible Golden State basketball, which you don't see very often. And they also, were the benefactor of the head case on the other team, really, in my opinion, changing the momentum of the game around. And I'm talking about Draymond Green. Listen, Jerry, privately, Steve Kerr's got to be wondering what the hell he can do with this guy. Seriously.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I was surprised they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. I mean, he is who he is. He hasn't been the same level of player for quite some time. And, now it's a case of, I think they've created that monster.
Yes, they have.
So to speak. So, that's, they made the bed, they get a lay in it, but the momentum clearly changed then on that deal. And then, of course, I thought, Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches ever, but he really made some mistakes. The challenge was clearly Curry stuck his leg out there, and and they had to know that. I think it's a case where he called it just to kind of satisfy Curry, and as a coach, you can't do that. In other words, if that's not a good challenge, you can't just have challenges because the player, whether it's your star or whoever, is calling for it, and it cost them a timeout late, which, with 7 seconds to go, you wouldn't want to, if you're Golden State, you'd like to be taking that ball out on the sideline and give Curry another couple of seconds to operate. And
you're right. I totally agree. You're 100% correct. You made an interesting comment, and I haven't really given us a lot of thought until I was just listening to you about the Warriors created this. And I'm going to go a step further. I think the league has created this. And by the league, I'm talking about the extended arms of the league, TNT, who gives Draymond Green a multi-year contract to come on the air and basically say whatever he wants. His podcast, which people glorify and talk about, social media. And there's no lid. There's no barrier anymore. And Draymond, who gets suspended almost as often as you and I do shows, gets glorified on TNT. You know, they joke about it a lot, although Kenny Smith was very critical of him the other night. But the point is, he's being rewarded for this type of behavior. And that's the biggest problem I see with this.
Yeah, it's almost like the internet thing, YouTube and all, where you get a lot of clicks for doing something ridiculous, Instagrams and so-called influencer. I mean, you're rewarded for bad behavior.
Sure.
And that's exactly what it is. And I mean, people will say, well, geez, you can't suspend him for this or that. And he says, and he made the statement, well, they're suspending me for 5 games because of past behavior. Well, yes, that's exactly right. They should. I mean, if it's like in the criminal justice system, at some point you keep breaking laws, you're probably going to have to go to jail. I mean, in today's time, you may not for a long time, but sooner or later you will.
Jerry Keegan-Murray is out again tonight, and I'm just wondering if his injury might be a little bit more serious than we're being led to believe. But the Kings have actually, they've done okay, and I think having Trey Lyles back has been a lifesaver. I don't think the Kings could have won the last 2 games without Trey Lyles.
Oh, not at all. I mean, Trey's, since day one coming back, is amazing how well he played, in the first game, and he's been consistently good since. And certainly offensively and on the boards, he's probably playing better than Keegan was.
Yes.
And then it's opened up some offensive opportunities for Harrison Barnes as well. So I think Lyles has really made the loss of Keegan for a while doable. And certainly, and then to Mike Brown, Coach Brown's credit, I mean, he's utilized his role players extremely well, kind of like last night's game. He sticks Vesenkov in there who hadn't played and really was a difference maker. And even Keon Ellis played a little bit, I mean, I just think he's done a remarkable job. I think, it's one of those deals that if you said somebody outcoached somebody, which is always hard, but I clearly think Mike Brown was not just the winning coach, but he really made the most good moves of anybody.
Boy, what a tough turnaround, an emotional game, come from behind. Fox played 40 minutes, a lot of emotions wrapped into that game last night. And now you have a team limping in. And when I mean limping in, I don't mean physically, although it could be when you see those guys on the floor. But the Clippers are in a position where they're pretty close to being irrelevant in the West. This is a big game for the Clippers tonight.
This is desperate times for the Clippers, no question. And it's what scares me for the Kings is because this is a bunch of really talented guys who have played poorly together and as a team and have lost a lot of games, and they've come off their worst game.
Yes.
Just a terribly embarrassing last outing, and they're a rested team. So, I think it's, the Kings obviously come off a huge emotional win. And as you pointed out, I mean, there's going to be some tired buckaroos here tonight. So, Coach Brown, fortunately, he's got a good deep bench. He's going to have to use it.
Yep. I think this game's going to tell me personally a lot about the Clippers. All right. And the reason why I say that, I look at the standings right now. They're 7-9. They've lost 6 of 10, and they're not even in the top 10 in the West. And if you're the Clippers, all right, and you're taking on a good team, but you could not ask for a better situation than you have right now. As you said, you're rested. The team you're playing played the night before in a game that a lot of the players played a lot of minutes. If the Clippers don't win tonight, that would be a real big red flag for me if I'm a Clipper fan.
Oh, I think it really, if you're Steve Ballmer and, the owner of that team right now, you're saying, wait a minute, all of our guys have been healthy. We're supposed to be a championship team if the guys are healthy. Well, they've been healthy, and here we are still struggling. I'd have to think, honestly, there's probably some jobs on the line here if they don't get it turned around quite quickly.
Harrison Barnes is a guy that has been criticized a lot, and I think it's been justifiable at times, particularly this year. He opened up the season in Utah with an incredible game, and then there were too many games where I'm like, wait a minute, did Harrison Barnes even play tonight? I think he's played, pretty well the last few games. Nobody's really talking about.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I mean, he's extremely productive. I've always said that's one of those things that he doesn't always put up big numbers, but he's never unproductive. If he takes 5 shots, he's going to make 8 points. If he takes, I mean, and so without Keegan, we're seeing him step up his offense. Now, it's certainly needed, but I credit him for stepping up. But also, I think part of it is the team is looking for him more. Obviously, no Murray available, and so he's playing more minutes, and so he's doing what he does. I think that's always been his weakness. He's a better player, I think, than he thinks he is. Kind of blends into he'll kind of blend into just to get along, go along kind of guy, when he's clearly a better player than that. And so, but that's kind of who he is. I mean, he's kind of like Sabonis in that sense, in that he is too unselfish. I mean, it's a lot better to have guys too unselfish than the other way.
We're getting to a point of the season now where a lot of the teams have played 16, 17, 18, 19 games. I always like to use 20 games as, not etched in stone, but I like to watch a team play 20 games before I make too many observations about what they need, what they don't need. With that said, I've said this, and I'm going to keep on saying this. I still think Sacramento needs to try to find a different backup point guard if this team's going to get to that level. I like everything else. I'm not saying everything else is perfect, but I still see that as an area of concern. Do you see it the same way?
Well, I do, unless you're going to really use Monk in that role more. I mean, he clearly can do it, but then you don't have, maybe Monk playing the same way. I mean, I just think Malik Monk's one of those guys. He's the third best player on this team, and instead of looking at him in terms of just a 6-man or a 25-minute guy, he should be a 32 to 35-minute player.
Wow, really?
Oh my goodness, who's better than he is other than Fox and Sabonis?
There's just way too, to me about Monk, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we talk about inconsistency. There are so many games where he just, I guess I'll say it this way. It just seems to me when he's not making his 3-ball, it's like, tell the fans what else you like about him on nights when he's not making his shots.
He can make plays. His assist rate is good. He's a pretty tough defender. Yeah. I just think that he's like a lot of guys. The more minutes he plays, the better he plays. And so in my mind is the old saying is get your best players on the floor as much as possible. Well, he's one of the best players. There's no doubt about that. And and can he play the point guard? Well, he pretty much does when Fox isn't on the floor, and they play pretty well together. They both can handle it. So, yeah, but it doesn't change what you said. I mean, I think there is a need for that still, for that position. It happens. I think Monk could do it, but if I were Monty McNair, I might think in terms of what can I do to maybe bring somebody else in that would be more of a true natural backup point.
Before we bring Ryan and Sacktown in, I wanted to ask you about the critical possession last night that the Warriors had where Draymond Green threw the ball out of bounds. I mean, in that situation, if you're the Warriors, to me, that's the last guy I want having the ball. But I give Mike Brown and the Kings a lot of credit when they ran an extra defender at Curry, and he saw the double coming and threw to the open man. But, I mean, in that situation for Green, I mean, that's one of the worst plays I've seen a player make. That wasn't even close. I mean, Klay Thompson had clearly already indicated what he was doing, and Draymond Green still almost had in his mind made up his decision that that's where he was going to throw the ball no matter what. It's just a horrible play by Draymond Green.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, I think it's one of those things where he really, like you said, I mean, it's pretty clear that Klay had made his move out, and Draymond thought he was going back door or should have. And of course, just a terrible play. But even with all that, I mean, that's the thing about the Warriors has been they turn the ball over.
Yes, they do.
I mean, they turn the ball over as a team, and
unforced.
unforced. And it's, as Steve Kerr said, I mean, which he's right. He knows his team. They foul too much. They clearly do. And they turn the ball over too much.
Yeah.
Well, those are things that doesn't lead to consistent winning. And as opposed to give Kings credit, generally speaking, they take care of the ball, even though they play
Yes,
at a fast pace and have a nice assist to turnover ratio. And so that, that's just the way it is. And of course, last night they got plenty of foul shots, but they couldn't make them, which is, they were lucky to win by being so poor at the line.
Ryan in Sacktown joins us. Ryan, good to have you on the program. Before you came on at the beginning of the show, I said to Jerry, hey, an ugly win's better than an ugly loss, right?
Yeah, the Kings will take it, especially on their home court. So it's good to get that Warriors win off their backs. That one's been in their heads and the fan base's head too.
All right, you got the pregame coming up at 6:30. How do you see this matchup tonight with the Clippers? Jerry and I went over it a little bit. Going to be interesting to see which Kings team shows up tonight after the emotion of last evening.
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers are rested. They were in Sacramento last night watching this game. So I think if the Kings bring energy and they take care of the ball, the Clippers are the 5th defensive rated team. They have the 5th best defensive rating in the NBA, and they're first in steals per game, which means they're long. They get deflections. So this is where the Kings, to take Jerry's words, have to love the leather. But the front line has to bring it because that's where the power for the Clippers is going to be at tonight.
Jerry, we talk about the Clippers, and I'm just wondering, when you look at that talent, that's one thing, but there's also a lot of egos on that team. That can't be the easiest group to coach, correct?
No, I think it'd be very difficult, and to Ryan's point, I think one thing they do have going for them, they've got 3 individual defenders that are terrific, in Westbrook and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I mean, big time, top of the line defenders. And that part you can almost count on. Their problems all seem to be, to me, what little I've watched them, is they just have no offensive flow. It's kind of a take turns kind of play, kind of like Kyrie and Luka looked like last year. They don't look like that this year, so it's going to be interesting. But it just hadn't all clicked in yet. That's for sure.
Well, Jerry, remember, it's not the system that James Harden needs to fit into. It's the James Harden system that they run in LA.
I think you're right. I think they are running James is the system, and that
he is the system.
A lot of the problem.
Here's an interesting question from Sam. We'll start with you first, Ryan, and then we'll get to Jerry. Ryan, if there were one player from the early 2000s team that you could put on the current Kings team, who would it be, or who would fit in the best?
Oh, man, this is a great question. 2 names come to mind, and they're both bench players, Bobby Jackson and Scott Pollard. I think those 2 positions would be so valuable in this style of play that the Kings like to play in this NBA as well. And I know a lot of people like to say Malik is kind of a little bit of a Bobby Jackson, but Bobby was a 2-way player. He did it on both ends, and I think both of those guys would be huge additions.
Jerry?
Well, I'd go with Chris Webber. I mean, because I think he would fit well with Sabonis, and Sabonis well with him. Kind of like you can see him playing the 2 high guys, like Vlade and C. Webb did, and so you'd be, talent wise, you'd be getting better. And maybe the second guy, I might go for Doug Christie with this bunch, because of his ability to guard several positions and really could play point guard at times. And so that'd be my thinking. But the reason I go with Webb is always, whenever the chance of getting more talent, and he's by far the most talented player on that bunch.
I would go with Peja Stojakovic because of the way the game is played today. And I think if you had Peja, I think the Kings would be absolutely unguardable. Absolutely unguardable. And again, the game is not a Chris Webber game anymore. It's a 3-point shooting game. And I understand what you mean about Webb, but I think the game is so different right now. You win by 3 and you lose with the 3. And for that reason, I'm taking Peja.
Well, all good choices.
Yeah, I think they're all good choices. I don't disagree with what you said. I think the Webb, the reason I say him is because he gets you 25 points on 15 shots every night. and I mean, he just could. And but I wouldn't have a problem either way, and I could say I if you could only have one, and you said you can have Doug Christie with this bunch, I'd say you've improved your team as well. And Bobby Jackson, I mean, any of them. I mean, come on, they were all really good, and they'd all find a role. I think, maybe the guy that would make the biggest trouble fitting in might be Bibby. Just because of
That's a
some of the
great
guys
point.
they've got.
Yeah, very, very true. A couple of games that Kings fans will be keeping their eye on tonight. Lakers and Pistons are just underway. The Suns and the Raptors will tip it off here in 20 minutes. That game is in Toronto. Other games, 76ers and the Pelicans in New Orleans, the Nuggets and the Rockets from Denver. Those are the other games in the standings in the West. So, this homestand continues, and tonight is going to be a very, I'll call it a tricky game. I could see this game being ugly. I could see it again going down to the wire. And I talked about this on the game last night on the post-game show, Jerry, and you mentioned already. These are the type of games where you need your bench. The bench, to me, is going to be critical for Sacramento.
No doubt. And I mean, I think the fact that it was a bench was really a key last night. And Coach Brown knows he's going to have to go deep into it. The fact that Sasha came in there and really had a nice role, I thought. You got a little something from Keon Ellis. Duarte did a little bit. Kessler Edwards. Well, that's kind of what's going to be needed. And, as well as, your starters are your starters. But I don't think the Kings win this game unless the bench wins.
Yeah. Rhino, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And I mean, even some of the guys that didn't get big minutes last night off the bench for Sacramento, they'll be ready. It seems like most of the bench guys are typically when they don't play a lot in a game. So if they can come in and pick the first unit up and there's not a big drop off, I think that could be one of those big things. Because I think the LA Clippers, you can make this team quit. If you get up on them and you get it a little bit later in the game, you can break their will.
Yeah.
Just one last point on that too. How enjoyable is it to follow a team like the Kings? They have no drama.
Yes.
There's no back scenes drama like with the Warriors or with the Clippers or with about 2/3 of the teams in the league. I think maybe other than Denver, I can't think of another team that has any less drama. The guys just seem like they're all on board. Whatever role they're asked to do.
Yeah, that's another reason why I wouldn't take Chris Webber. I think he would have trouble with De'Aaron Fox being the big star of the team. But,
that's a good point. That's a good point. I wouldn't argue that.
The thing that I love about this team, and I think Sabonis, I've always heard, this, Jerry, from talking with Larry Bird, he's not the type of a player that runs in and looks at the box score and, it has to be all about him. He had already been a two-time All-Star. And when you have a player, I think, come into your locker room with a young team, which they pretty much were, I like that. And I also tell you, people criticize Harrison Barnes a lot for whatever reason. Jerry, you know this, and I know this because we were around him every day. That guy is the glue of that locker room by leading by example. First one there, last one to go, getting extra treatment on his body every day, plays every game, doesn't miss games, Jerry. The reason is he takes such good care of himself. And I think you make a great point about the locker room and no drama. And there's a reason for that. And it starts with your vets.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly where it starts. And then when you have vets, like you say, with Harrison, who doesn't miss games, and people always want to replace him with guys who maybe are more talented but miss a lot of games. They don't factor that in. But like with Sabonis, not only is he talented but very unselfish, too unselfish in my mind. But I mean his conditioning, his work. I mean, so when you're one of your best players is also your toughest guy, your hardest worker, your most unselfish, it's a little hard for you as you're a role player to bitch, moan, and complain and get any kind of an audience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And also, you look at teams usually, if you're a young guy coming into the league, you've got a Harrison Barnes that does things the right way, and maybe you got a guy in the locker room that doesn't always do things the right way, and you kind of see which roads you can go down. The Kings locker room, it seems like there's only one choice, doing it the right way. I can't think of one player that we've heard stories about that's a detriment to that group.
Well, and if you want to do something the right way when it comes to dining out, you want to go to Bennett's. The West Side Grill in Rockland at the Blue Oaks Town Center is their third location. They're at Sacramento on Howe and Fair Oaks. They're at Eureka Road and Lead Hill Road in Roseville. And I love this Bennett's restaurant at the Blue Oaks Town Center in Rockland. Prime seafood and steak. Don't forget about the weekend brunch, the weekend prime rib, happy hours during the week, 60 different types of glass, 60 different types of wine available by the glass. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com, make a reservation, check out the menu and more. Bennett's West Side Grill, their newest one in Rockland. Well, the Kings and the Clippers, don't forget Ryan with the pregame show at 6:30, all three of us at halftime, and then the postgame. We will wrap it up. Had a really good audience last night. All combined, we had over 10,000, Ryan. So you know what? When the Kings win, people want to be involved. When they lose, not so much.
Yeah, they want to have fun with us, and we appreciate that.
That's right. See, and then at halftime we're getting good numbers, and we were doing our best to make Jerry very well known in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, I need it. I got recognized at the grocery about a couple hours ago, and so that means a lot to me, man. I didn't. The clerk didn't really give me any discount, but he was very nice.
Oh,
so
that's very funny. No discount.
Most places have a Jerry Reynolds discount. That's weird.
No discount.
Surprising. Yeah, I was going to say. He said, "Yeah, I really misses me." He said, Grant a little bit, but me a lot. Well, he didn't really say that, but I just knew that's what he meant.
Well, Jerry and all my other friends always used to come. I would hope Jerry's a friend. Would come up to me. They go, the number one question I get about you more than anything is, "What's Grant really like?"
Yeah, well, like I say, I tell him. I said, "Yeah, he's one of one. There's no doubt about that."
He's one of one.
One of one, and well, I've told people, I said, I always told fans, I said, some people like him a lot, and some people don't. But I said, to me, he's like coffee. He's an acquired taste, and once you acquire it, you have to have it. And I said, I acquired it a long time ago. So to me, he's black coffee.
That is a really good one right there. Love it.
Wow. Unbelievable. First time I met Jerry was at a restaurant on Northgate Boulevard, and I walked in and, Bill Russell was in there and Willis Reed was in there. And I'm like, I don't want to meet Jerry Reynolds. I want to, that's Willis Reed, one of my idols growing up, winning a championship with the Knicks.
Yeah. My feelings were really hurt then too, because, I thought, geez, I'm a bigger deal than Willis Reed and Bill Russell. Goodness.
Yeah, they worked for you, right?
Yeah. Well, they didn't. No, I was an assistant there. No, I was. I understood it because Willis is one of my heroes, and of course Bill was too. But Willis more so. Just because once you get to know him, and it's just a salt of the earth kind of guy, just the best. Russ I really enjoyed, but he was different, a little different, eccentric.
Ryan, I got to tell you, though, to walk into a restaurant off Northgate Boulevard, right off I-80, and walk into a restaurant and have Bill Russell in there, okay, and Willis Reed, but Bill obviously was the mountain of mountain.
Yeah.
What was unbelievable for me. I got to tell you, I'll never forget walking in there. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe. It's like when I covered the 49ers for the first time at the training camp in Rockland, and you walk onto the field and there's Joe Montana and there's Jerry Rice and there's Roger Craig and there's Ronnie Lott, right? And then you go into the room for the coach's press conference, and Bill Walsh walks into the room and sits down, and it's just like, wow, you know what I mean? It's a lot.
Yeah, that's when you pick the right occupation, and then you're thinking of the right questions asked so you don't get kicked out of that occupation.
And then Tom Curran, introduced me to this guy named Jerry Reynolds, and I'm like, Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? That's where I met Jerry at the Tom
Yeah,
Curran,
yeah.
who did the games before me, nicest guy in the world. So come here, you got to meet this
Absolutely.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yep.
was great, wasn't he? Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom,
great guy. Yep.
that does bring back a lot of memories. But it's like the sports celebrities you meet over the years. There's some that just have the lasting memory, like you mentioned Willis or Bill.
Yep.
I mean, the special guys. I mean, in our business, you run into a lot of name kind of guys, but I always say that probably the biggest thing for me was working. I worked Henry Aaron's camps, sports camps, when I was a small college coach in Georgia and up in the northern part. And he'd come in there on usually days off once out of the 2 weeks, like one day. And so I got to meet Henry Aaron, and to me it's like, wow.
Wow.
And
that's Henry Aaron. Yeah.
Plus he was so nice. I mean, it was just like he was concerned how everything was going with me and working the camp and everything. It's like,
wow.
Henry Aaron, I mean, and I was a 30, 27, 28-year-old coach, But anyway, but yeah, those kind of things when you meet a great one, and they're more than you even anticipated.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than meeting an idol or someone that you've always looked up to, and you meet them and they're a jerk, right? That's the worst thing in the world. And when I'll never forget when I had Dusty Baker on my podcast about 2 years ago, his first experience was being in a major league clubhouse with Henry Aaron, and he talked about how Aaron shaped his life as a young man in the Deep South during a very volatile time. And Dusty talked about all the life experiences that he learned from Henry Aaron. He really was a special man. I never had a chance to meet him, but I guess I'll always say this about people like that, Jerry. I never heard a bad thing about Henry Aaron from anybody.
No, I don't see how you could, but I mean, it's always possible that he couldn't sign every autograph that stuck in front of him. You know how that is, and so that's it. But it was really, remarkable. Yeah, you like to see all-time greats be great people, and most are. But like you say, that I've met a few total jerks, and I won't name them particularly, but that
we all have.
Yeah.
And over time, their jerkdom does take care of them.
Yep. All right, so guys, what do you think tonight? Post-game show, Ryan, you think we're talking about a win or a loss?
I think we're going to sweat it out a little bit and gut it out, but I think ultimately Kings win. They go back to back.
I think the Clippers are such a mess right now that they obviously, Jerry, can't be a very confident team coming in here.
I don't think they are, and I think that's if Kings could really jump on them early, as I think Ryan pointed out, they might roll over. They've got a lot of issues there, a lot of egos so you hope the Kings can do that, come down and really put some pressure on them right away, and we'll just have to see. But it'll take when you're playing, it's still a talent league, and they've got a lot of talent, so that's always worries you.
Don't let Russ Westbrook remember that he's Wes Westbrook. I mean, every time he comes into Golden One Center, it seems like he tries to put on a little bit of a show. So if they can slow that down.
One thing about him, and you're right, I'll say this for Russ. I mean, for all the criticism he's had, that guy plays hard every night, every play. And I mean, I respect the heck out of him. He does. I mean, you can say a lot of things, but that guy brings it every night.
All right, one thing I want to get to before we wrap up this show. And Jerry, a guy that I think I speak for you that I have an immense amount of respect for, that I like a lot. I've spent a lot of time with him, and that's Greg Popovich. I thought what he did last week was embarrassing. I don't know how else to say it. You're admonishing your fans because they're booing a player. I just couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I think I admire the heck out of him and all, but I think was going kind of above his pay grade there a little bit. I mean, I personally don't like to, I wouldn't boo players necessarily, but, I don't think it bothered. I mean, when you have every right, that's my point. I mean, I think that Kawhi Leonard himself didn't seem upset by it.
No.
He expected it. So, anyway, yeah, I think if you're a fan that wants to boo guys, you should be able. Of course, you can boo them.
Yeah.
And so,
Ryan, what do you think of that?
I think I'm with Jerry and I'm with you, Grant, on it, but I think Pop is at a point in his career, he just doesn't care.
Right.
He has the relationships that he values. He's very close with Kawhi, very instrumental in Kawhi's growth as a star in this league. So I just think he doesn't care. It's his relationships over how people think.
He doesn't. You're right about that. He does not. Jerry, we'll see you at halftime. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope it's a little more cheerful halftime than we had last night. But then again, if it turns out the same way, I'll be all right with it.
All right. Thanks,
All
Jerry.
right, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Jerry.
Good stuff from Jerry, and good stuff when you need plumbing repairs, you have concerns. New Works Plumbing will be there for you. They've got a fix for you. SackServicePlumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. Again, available around the clock for your plumbing needs and plumbing repairs. SackServicePlumbing.com. Rhino, looking forward to the pregame tonight, and then we'll be right back at it at halftime and postgame. You'll take another ugly win, I guess, if you're Sacramento right now. Just, you're at home. You got to really take advantage of these home games.
Yes, indeed. And maybe get some rest, get up early, and take the team out early. But looking forward to the shows, Nibs.
All right. Good stuff there. For the rest of you, don't forget to subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that like button. And 6:30 right back here, halftime with Jerry and post-game show. Thanks very much. Enjoy the game, everybody.